students, I want to start by saying a few things. The first is thank you. We've made it to Thanksgiving. I know you all are returning home soon, taking your classes for the remainder of the semester virtually and coming back to the campus the third week of January. We've tested more than 30,000 times this semester. And we have a 0.5 positivity rate. We've been able to do that, as I've said, because of you, our staff, our faculty, and our students, particularly our students, because you have held yourselves accountable, done the right things, and taken care of not only yourselves, but your classmates. What I'm encouraging now is that you stay safe as you go back to your respective communities. Continue to practice the things that you were practicing here. Wearing masks, being socially distant, not gathering in groups if you can, and really trying to think about your fellow person, whether that be a family member, a very good friend, or just a stranger in the street. We've not witnessed anything like this in our lifetimes. And it only gets better if we're able to take care of each other. You've shown that you can do that, so thank you. I also want to say I'm very pleased with the student response relative to all the surveys we've asked for. We have a climate survey out there now that is still open until Monday of next week. The SGA provided a survey trying to get a sense of what students were feeling during this time period. And Academic Affairs has also issued a survey. All those responses have been recorded except for the climate survey. And what we know is that this time is probably even more critical and tough for our students than even when the pandemic began. We take that very, very seriously. So after talking with the Council of Chairs, our deans, and our provost, we've made one critical decision relative to your continued study. We will continue to have the pass-fail policy through the remainder of the pandemic. We know how important it is that you succeed academically, and we know this is not an easy environment for anybody to be operating in, whether you be an instructor, a professor, or a student. What I would say to the students is be thoughtful about when you take the pass-fail option. Make sure you understand if there are any impacts to job prospects or graduate school opportunities before so doing. And I encourage you to talk to your professors and your advisors before making that final decision. Having said that, we hear you. We respect the moment, and most importantly, we respect you. So that decision, again, pass-fail option will be extended through the end of the pandemic. But today, we are here for a very specific reason. I've reserved this discussion to talk about the university's response to sexual misconduct on campus. It's often referred to as Title IX. Title IX is a category designated for these kinds of offenses by the U.S. Department of Education. Here's what's going to happen this morning. I'll first give you my perspective on this critical issue on campus, and then I've asked our Chief Enterprise Risk Officer and our General Counsel, Ms. Lucretia Moultrie, to provide a brief overview of the legal position of the university and the mandates under which we operate. This is an important discussion. It'll be an open Q&A after you hear from Ms. Moultrie. Unless it's a technical question that requires her expertise, you will hear from me in all of these responses. There's not a panel of people answering your questions, just Ms. Moultrie and me. Why? Because personally, I think this is important, I abhor sexual misconduct. It should have no place in our society, much less on our campus or on any campus in the United States. It destroys lives, it denigrates victims, and it corrodes the common bonds of community. It literally attacks the very foundation of everything we're attempting to achieve at Delaware State University. I take it very seriously. During the fall, I met with a student advocacy group, GIVE, and last week I sat down with the leadership of the Student Government Association, the Integrity Administration, to discuss specific actions that we as a university are immediately willing to commit to. When I first met with GIVE, it was early October, and I respected all the things that they brought to our attention. So we thought it was important to have that dialogue. I want you all to recognize that I am always open to dialogue. I think it's the very fabric of who we should be at a university. Being able to engage with each other, one to another, whether that be faculty to student, student to administration, faculty administration, or staff all around. That's what a university community is about. So if you are willing to engage, know that my door is always open. Let me go back a little bit to some of the things that came out of my conversation with the Student Government Association. At the top, I want to say that they asked to meet. We met a few days after their request, and it was a good meeting. They represented the student interest well. They were undaunted and really wanted to express to me real changes they wanted to see in the university community on this topic. We agreed to a couple. They included a collaborative review by students and administration of all university Title IX processes, and a statement on all the findings that cite areas for improvement. Enhanced funding for the university's sexual assault response advocates, you might know them as SARA. A comprehensive prevention plan in collaboration with the SGA and administration that includes strategies based on national best practices, and an annual campus climate survey. I think all of those things are important. And I always know, and you should always know, that even when you think you're doing things as well as you can, there's always room to get better. In addition, I had the opportunity to clarify a few things. First, the university does share data about sexual misconduct required by both the federal government and the state of Delaware. The federal requirements include all crimes on campus. The Delaware report is specifically focused on sexual assault and other misconduct on all campuses across the state. That is a significantly more detailed information than is available in any other report. And it's published publicly by the state of Delaware, not the university. So today I've given instructions that we place a direct link on our university website to that state report. Those are the things that I've committed to do. Now let's talk about what needs to be done. And let me stop here to acknowledge that in large measure, we are here and talking about this issue in depth because a number of student sexual assault survivors and other concerned students have begun a commitment to activism within that cause. I know they raised it on social media, in petitions, and in their physical presence with a well-organized protest on campus last week. When you read their materials, you can't escape the raw hurt and anger that is the hallmark of any survivor, and the insistence that immediate steps be taken as much as is humanly possible. I recognize that. And I'm proud of them because they chose to become activists in a worthy cause. And while I will continue to engage in this dialogue for as long as it takes, I want every student to know that they have a voice, and using that voice productively is important. That said, both for the future plans and today's Q&A session, we have to be careful about what can be shared as a matter of federal and state law. This is a public forum. I cannot and will not discuss or allude to any specific case on the campus. That's illegal. It violates due process and confidentiality protections for all concerned. And while we can't take that information and share it with you, I do want you to know that we want to make sure that you understand the process and the facts related to that process. Other than that, everything is on the table. My only request is that we try to be as solutions-oriented as possible. My senior staff knows that I hate to worship a problem at the expense of developing a solution. Once we've identified what needs fixing, our opportunity is to go fix it. What we're doing today is the beginning. The future is the end state we're aiming toward, but know that our work is never done, that we can always do more, and we can do that together. Now, I'll turn it over to Ms. Moultrie to talk to you a little bit about the Title IX process, and after that, the floor is yours. Thank you. Lucretia?
Thank you, Dr. Allen, and good morning, everyone. As Dr. Allen mentioned, I'm joining you today to provide a brief overview of the university's Title IX program. Next slide, please. As a public institution of higher education, Delaware State University adheres to the laws that prohibit sex discrimination. The university promptly responds to allegations of sexual misconduct regarding our students, faculty, and staff through the Title IX process. Sexual misconduct can include incidents such as sexual harassment, non-consensual sexual contact, sexual assault, dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking. Next slide. The process is actually initiated when a complaint is filed, and the complaint can be verbal or written. And there are two potential tracks that a complaint can take. The first being the administrative track, which the university actually owns that process. This is when the complainant on the front end decides if he or she wants a formal or an informal process. The informal process is voluntary, and it can take the form of a mediation, for example. The formal process includes an investigation, a hearing, sanctions, which can range from warnings all the way through expulsion, as well as appeals. The second track that a situation can take could be criminal. So sometimes the facts that are the basis for a Title IX complaint may also involve criminal conduct. The police investigation is separate from the DSU administrative process. And sometimes a criminal investigation can be necessary, depending on the nature of a case or the complexity of a case. And to be clear, of course, the university cooperates with any criminal investigation which occurs. The university may agree to some delay to allow evidence to be collected or other investigative measures to take place by the university police or local law enforcement, whatever agency is involved. The university process for investigating and adjudicating a formal administrative complaint will not be precluded unless limited by a court order or other court process. So the bottom line that I want to emphasize here is that the administrative process is a process that often occurs in parallel with the criminal process, meaning they can occur at the same time. And as Dr. Allen noted before, it's important to emphasize that no matter what the process, the university is required to maintain strict confidentiality regarding Title IX cases. We cannot disclose information regarding particular parties or facts related to a specific case. Next slide. So as I close today, I want to leave you all with some important resources and contact information. First and foremost is the contact information for the university's Title IX coordinator, Candy Young. You'll see her email address and phone number listed there. And then some other resources as well. First, the DSU website, the Title IX website. If you follow that link, I encourage you all to take a moment to review the Title IX policy, which has details that can be helpful to anyone trying to gain a better understanding of the process or needing to access some additional resources. As Dr. Allen mentioned earlier, the CLERI data is on the university website, and the CLERI Act is a law that requires the university to share information about crimes which occur on campus. And that link provides the CLERI data. And finally, campus sexual assault in Delaware. There's a report, and it's currently accessible through the Attorney General's website. So each year, our Title IX office reports information regarding campus sexual assaults to the Delaware Department of Justice. The Department of Justice then prepares an annual report on campus sexual assault in Delaware generally, and that includes the 5 other institutions of higher education within the state of Delaware, in addition to, of course, Delaware State University. So I want to thank you all for your time and attention today, and Dr. Allen will now proceed with the question and answer portion of our presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Moultrie. I failed to mention, as always, if you have questions, you should put them in the chat box. We have Brother McMillan monitoring those questions. Brother McMillan, are there any questions in queue at the moment?
Currently, there are no questions.
Let's give it a moment to populate and make sure we have an opportunity to hear from our students. And while that's happening, Lucretia, why don't you just talk a little bit more about the CLERI Act in particular? I think that's important from a reporting perspective for the students to have a sense of.
Sure, Dr. Allen. So as I mentioned, the CLERI Act has been in place for several years. And if you click on the link, what you'll see is a series of dates, the nature of each report, and this information is populated by our campus police. We're required to maintain our CLERI Act information for a period of 3 years. So that information is very user-friendly and easily accessible on our website for anyone that's interested in that information. But as you mentioned earlier, that is just general crime reporting. It's not specific to any sexual misconduct.
Great, and if you could, because there has been some discussion generally, and I do mean generally, about suspensions and readmissions processes. Could you talk a little bit about that as well?
So generally speaking, sometimes through the Title IX process, as I mentioned, there's a range of sanctions that could attach. So it can be a warning, it can be probation, it can be suspension or expulsion. In situations where it's actually suspension, what happens is the student will have a suspension period, which will include some terms that relate to their period of suspension. So it may require them to perform community service, have evaluations done, comply with new contact orders, a range of things based on the sanctions issued through the Title IX process. Before an individual returns back to the university after a suspension, they have to complete a request to return back to the university. That request is actually subject to review by our Student Affairs office, and they'll review the circumstances and determine whether or not it's appropriate for someone to return back to campus. So that could include an assessment of whether or not someone's complied with the terms of their sanctions during their period of suspension, things similar to that. So it's at the university's discretion as to whether or not someone can return back to the university after a period of suspension. It's not something that happens automatically.
Thank you. Brother McMillan, any questions in queue?
Yes. First question. Why won't the university adopt a policy to provide amnesty for members of SGA and student workers for speaking out against the university about their experience with sexual assault?
Yeah, I've heard that question before. I'm going to throw it to Lucretia in a second here, but let me just say, if you're speaking with respect to retaliation, there is no such provision at the university, which is to say that we don't retaliate for students speaking out. As I said at the top of my comments, Particularly the student demonstration last week was a good example. We actually supported the rights for the students to do that and do that responsibly. I think they did that incredibly well, and we would never organize or order any retaliatory activities as a result. So if there, amnesty also has a legal connotation to it as well. So I'll have Ms. Moultrie talk about the legal connotation.
Sure. As I mentioned earlier today, I really encourage everyone to take a look at our Title IX policy on our website. And it specifically talks about amnesty in that policy itself. And generally what it states is that the university wants to encourage reporting individuals and witnesses to speak out and make the university aware of incidents that may fall under the umbrella of Title IX. And the policy does provide for amnesty for under certain circumstances, with regard to incidents which may occur on campus.
President McMillan, other questions?
Would it be reasonable to have a person who has committed such an act as rape to be strictly online?
First of all, that has not crossed my desk generally, and obviously I couldn't talk about any specific case. I can tell you that with respect to readmission for anybody who has been on suspension, as Ms. Moultrie noted, there is a process. That process too is confidential in nature, and we take that very seriously. So I could not discuss any individual's case and have not had that kind of determination come across my desk at this time.
How does the university deal with addressing misinformation about an issue?
You know, it's a good question. It's also a very difficult question because what we are committed to is confidentiality in all of these matters, particularly when they involve students. Again, that is a legal standard. We cannot share information about any specific case and or individual. So with respect to misinformation that may or may not come up, what we point you to is the guidelines that we have in place. Now, what I can say is after a great conversation with the Student Government Association, we're happy to review those processes, and we'll be doing that in concert with the SGA over the course of the next semester. And if there are improvement opportunities for us, we will take those in stride. But relative to thinking through how we are treating misinformation, all we can do is correct based on the standards that are outlined both by federal and state law and by our own university policies.
One question is that I don't understand how someone is able to come back to the university after being sent away for assault, and how is a $100 fine, but for fighting and or smoking is a $400 or more fine?
Yeah, again, that sounds like a specifics of an individual case. I can't comment on the specifics of an individual case. What I would turn your attention to again is what Ms. Moultrie just said a few minutes ago, which is readmission to the university after a suspension is not automatic. It is a process. That process is reviewed by the university and a final determination is given. And what you need to know about that is even when that final determination is given, that final determination is still confidential. So me nor any of my staff will never be able to share the outcomes of these decisions. Brother McMillan, any other questions?
What will the university do about repeat offenders, and how will they guarantee safety for all students?
I'm going to have Ms. Moultrie start because she mentioned it too. But remember, there's an administrative standard. Think of that administrative standard as university policies and the like. And then there are more legal / criminal activities as well. And I'm going to have her talk you through that process again, just to make sure you're fully aware of one, where the right lines are between the two, how they interrelate when appropriate, and what that means for your safety overall.
Thank you, Dr. Allen. So with regard to repeat offenders, that is something that can be taken into consideration. Let me back up a little bit. The important part of there being a process that attaches to Title IX is that there be a complete review of the circumstances of any particular case. And what can be particularly relevant is a repeat offender. So a documented history of incidents related to sexual misconduct in the context of Title IX. So with regard to the sanctions portion of the process in particular, someone who has been a repeat offender can be subject to additional sanctions based on a history of misconduct. And it's very similar in the criminal process. So hypothetically, if someone has committed a series of criminal actions, no matter what it is, when a court gets to the point where it's determining, or the court being a judge or a jury gets to the point where it's determining what sanctions are appropriate, very similarly, they're going to look at a history. So a history of misconduct can be significant in determining what sanctions are appropriate.
President Miller, any other questions?
Can you share how many cases there have been this semester?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but you will remember that is on our website. And so remember to go to, I think it's called the Fire and Crime Report on our website. And I believe it's page 67 and 68. And you can find the last, I believe, 4 or 5 years of activity along those lines. Except for 2019, which will be available on December 1 of this year. And that, again, is federally mandated. As it relates to offenses at all colleges, at least in the state of Delaware, that's that state of Delaware report that Ms. Moultrie talked about as well. And we'll make sure we send out links to both those reports right after this call.
That's it as far as what we have here, Dr. Allen.
That's out. No further questions?
Correct.
Okay. Ms. Moultrie, any final thoughts from you?
Just in wrapping up, I think it's important that everyone take the time to take a look at the Title IX policy that the university has issued. It's a very thorough policy. I think you'll find it very informative. And to the extent that you have any follow-up questions, I strongly encourage everyone to follow up with the Title IX office.
Thank you. Thank you for your participation today. To our students, staff, and faculty, particularly our students, let me just reiterate, this is the beginning of our ongoing dialogue. The Student Government Association has already told me and committed to another forum on this same topic in the January timeframe when you return. So please make every effort to participate in that. I hope to be invited and certainly will participate in that myself. I do want to go over some of the provisions that the SGA and I agreed to relative to moving forward here. Again, a collaborative review by students and the administration of the university of the Title IX processes, and a statement of our findings that cite any areas for improvement. Enhanced funding for university sexual assault response advocates, also known as SARA. A comprehensive prevention plan, which I think is very, very important, developed in collaboration with the SGA and administration, that includes strategies on national best practices, excuse me, including preventive measures, models, and actions, and an annual campus climate survey. So what I hope you have heard today is our opportunity to continue to be as transparent with you, to share the information as we know it, to turn you to the tools and resources that are at your disposal today, and most importantly, to know that our door is always open, including my door. So thank you again for a wonderful semester. Thank you for being the kinds of students that would make any university president proud. You certainly have done that for me, whether it be testing or sharing your voice on issues that are important, not only to the university community, but to our society as a whole. I wish you a very, very happy Thanksgiving and hope you take care of yourselves and your families. Godspeed and God bless. Have a good day.